Hello everyone, to all participants, to this online marathon, international marathon of studying holy scripts. For the benefit of the whole world we're doing it. This is our modest offering to the spiritual master. Everybody can dedicate this to his own spiritual master, the fruits of these acts. And right now we are having an interactive session. We will be sharing our realizations, and it's a space for asking questions. It's very good to have this form of association because it helps to balance it out with philosophical part, as Bhagavad Gita is a very not usual text. It's a text that describes our relationship with this world and different laws of this world. So this script is not easy to study. However, thanks to the energy of compassion of Srila Prabhupada that he imported in it, in his purports, we have a chance more or less to understand what is this dialogue about. So our start of this marathon is usually difficult to begin, especially if we didn't run for some time. So to start it, it's quite difficult. Maybe it will be difficult to read for some people. However, with time, this reading will purify the heart from all contamination, and because it is a service to the Lord, the Lord says even himself that so this study will be definitely maybe difficult at first. Of course, the Lord is controlling in the heart, and our job is just to keep doing it, not to quit this marathon. And there is no failure in this marathon once again. Okay, I'm gonna read the first expectation by Irina. She is expecting to be really plunged in to these holy scripts from the standpoint of time. There is not always opportunity to read simultaneously. That's not a problem. Don't worry that you don't manage to do it simultaneously. Maybe someone can share later on if he has experience of these simultaneous readings. What do you have? What transformation? What do you have inside of you? Or you can maybe even follow, like just with your eyes. But the most important is that you are comfortable. You have to have certain understanding. So my expectation from this marathon is to overcome my laziness all together with the participants of the marathon, and I would not be able to manage myself, to organize myself to do that. Yes, it's very important to understand that in Kali Yuga there is this degradation. This is a time of degradation, and our consciousness is spread, and therefore in this time the best would be to do something together. So it's always better to do this sacrifice together. So it's very great that you also write that everyday little victories are really giving you enthusiasm and faith. Every day you do a little victory, and then you will have this positive experience. I'm having the same point of view with you. I would not agree just by myself to read that many hours a day, but because we're doing it together, I'm sure that we will manage it. Valeria is writing. In the end of the marathon, I hope that I will be better understanding holy scripts, and I will start understanding them, and I will gain certain experience in of how to bring to practice this what I study. Yes, I'm sure you will manage that, because we are reading not just kind of mundane literature where people are writing some kind of thoughts or stories, but at the same time these people don't follow what they're writing. They're not doing themselves. There is not an example. So no matter how many books about morality we would read, almost nobody would be able to bring it to practice. So it's our big fortune that we are reading now, because first of all, it's the Lord who is speaking. And he even says himself that normally I don't need to do the duties, but I do it to bring an example. And Srila Prabhupada, who gives the purport, he himself as well, he is perfect, pure devotee, and he is leading by example. He is giving us example, and so that's why we will be managing to do that as well. So it's one of our advantages that we can maybe hope to do it rightfully. So I really congratulate you with such a great motive. Camille is writing, my expectations of this marathon, I would like to become closer to Krishna, to be able to learn how to engage everything that I have in the service, and I also would like to serve to the devotees in this marathon and receive mercy of Vaishnavas, and I hope my heart would be purified and I would be harmonically interacting with people for the service of Krishna. Yes, your expectations and your motives are very high. Srila Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita's purports a lot of things of how to engage ourselves. Association with the Vaishnavas you already have, so now you just keep reading the purports of Srila Prabhupada. So it's the best association with the Vaishnavas. You know, not all the time we can find the live association with the Vaishnavas, especially considering the fact that they are not that numerous at the planet right now. The high level Vaishnavas, and the association we really need it, because due to this association we can only progress. It is called sadhu sangha. Sadhu are saintly people or Vaishnavas. A sangha means the association. So right now we are also associating here with Vaishnavas, and even by yourself you could associate by using internet. The fact that you are participating in this marathon is is already great. Maybe you can even contact our team and ask how could you serve, and maybe our team can even give you some service in return. Who knows? Because the service is if we do perform some service, the reward would be another service. Olga is writing, I'm participating in the third marathon, and every time I have to begin marathon immediately, there are so many things to do, so many people are calling me that I become so popular and needed to so many people. Well, it is material energy who is acting like that. Yes, exactly how like that. It's like you are declaring a war to the material energy and you do not want to interact with her, and so she starts to do that. Like temptations, they will always exist because like that we will become more endurant. So because imagine we cannot go like fish something without going to the water. It's not possible. So in the future, when you already be established in the spiritual path, all the things that will happen to you, they will be perfect and they will satisfy you because everything will be aligned um, inside of you to the inner energy of Yogamaya. Because we're in the beginning of the path, we still have material desires, we still have material duties, different connections with the relatives and friends. And just the moment we try to do something on the spiritual path, these people materially will try to stop us. They will try to keep us because otherwise they feel that they lose you. But this material world is created in a way that everybody is exploiting each other, and so if we want to quit this material existence, what we have to learn is to how to serve everybody and not to exploit no one. So of course the moment that you want to get out, the material connections will try to stop you. They will say, oh, please don't go, what we would do without you, please stay with us. Of course I'm bringing a lot of metaphors, but there is such a thing. Another thing is that when you start your spiritual practice, Prabhupada sometimes even says that the devotee is very dear to everyone. Why? Because everybody deep inside search for Krishna, and the devotee has Krishna. He has Krishna. Therefore, the people there subconsciously are trying to take Krishna from this devotee. So even though that the laws of spiritual mathematics or arithmetic suggest that if you give something, you will not lose it, but you will notice sometimes that you will be requested, you will be desired because you have something very valuable. So I wish you to be patient, to love everyone. At the same time, I wish you to learn how to say no in a way that the people will not be offended. Maybe sometimes it will even look that the person mm, that the person doesn't like what you're saying, but you have to be patient, tolerate. So yes, it's good what you're writing, that you're dear to a lot of people. Yulia is writing, how can I learn not to mm, not to make mine how not to make mine the fruits of actions? Well, when you try to appropriate the fruits of action, it means you want to enjoy. So but try to understand, now we're studying philosophy, and we have to try to understand that Krishna is the one who is enjoying. So try in your thoughts to do things, to do things in general, and in your thoughts dedicated to him. You know, of course, sometimes we're doing stupid things. At this time, we don't want that the fruits of the stupid things belong to Krishna. But of course, in the beginning, we will have still tendency to enjoy the fruits of our actions. But it's the beginning; it's normal. Don't appropriate these fruits. If you have spiritual master, try to do it for him. Try to begin with the thoughts. At certain point, you will feel that some of your activities make no sense. They are useless, and some things will be just easily quitted. Because you will understand that what you are doing right now, Krishna doesn't need it. And also, you will be afraid to appropriate the fruits, because it's a really trouble when we try to appropriate the fruits of actions, because the fruits, they are very heavy. Yeah, they might be good or bad, but they're heavy. Why they're heavy? Because they make the soul stay in this material world. Good or be them good or bad, you will have to take birth again and all over again. If you really realize this, if you understand this, oh my God, I will have to take birth again, then you will be really afraid of appropriating the fruits of your acts. For example, okay, I'm trying to bring an example, okay? So, for example, you, if you conceive a child, then you will have to educate the child. You have to give birth. You will have to have a lot of. You will have to undergo a lot of austerities. You will have to forget about plans, about your personal life, because if you are given birth, after a while your plans will be totally changed. If you want it or not. If you plant a tree, um, for example, fruit tree, then um, you will have to take care of the fruits of this fruit tree. If you buy a car, you will have to technically take care of it. So devotees does all of that. But all the fruits he dedicates to Krishna, and that allows him to still continue acting, but not to be conditioned by the fruits and by this activity. So begin with your thoughts, begin with that. With time, you will start feeling this border, and you will stop being allured or tempted to get these fruits. Ludmila is writing. Do I understand correctly? If if it's so that before I do everything, I have to address Krishna by saying, "Dear Krishna, with this act, I would like to please you and glorify you." Also, how can I be avoiding the silly things while before I have a spiritual master? Yes, that's a good idea. If you before you start something, you can address Krishna and offer this to him. What is important is to do it sincerely, because Krishna looks at our sincerity. If we do something formally, but inside, deep inside, we still want the fruit, the Krishna then he will not accept your prayer. So you have to be sincere. Then how to abstain from doing stupid things whilst waiting for the spiritual master in your life? Well, even with a spiritual master, you can still keep doing stupid things, because this is the beginning. Just maybe you will not consider it a stupid thing, because the student disciple is always silly for the teacher. If you start thinking that you are not a silly disciple in front of your teacher, then you can even degrade, and a spiritual master will see your mood. As for these silly things or acts, in the process of the purification of your heart, slowly and gradually, all the silly things will fall off. Just because it will be caused by the strengthening intelligence. And the stronger your intelligence becomes, the more perceptive you will become towards this distinguishing between silly things and fine things. So if you read Bhagavad Gita, if you read purports of Srila Prabhupada or Srimad Bhagavatam or any other books of Srila Prabhupada, if you're chanting Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, then you have to understand that your spiritual master, you already have it. It's Srila Prabhupada. And you are already protected by Srila Prabhupada. And the moment you satisfy Srila Prabhupada, and he will be convinced that you are serious about this spiritual path, he will manage everything that you will receive a real spiritual master in body and flesh. And by that time, you already will be practicing, you will already feel what is stupid, what is not. And just, yes, continue and read books, associate, and be in process, and all the silly things will fall off. Because whilst when this material world, there are just silly things around us, even though sometimes you might think that something is fine. But if someone is more elevated in consciousness, then he will see that what we consider a nice thing, that it's a silly thing. And the same will apply to everyone. The one who has more developed consciousness, he will see that the things that do people with less developed consciousness are silly. And with time, you will learn how to track it. And a student, a disciple, should always feel himself in front of his master, the silly one. And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that his spiritual master told him, "You cannot study Vedanta. You are too silly. Just chant holy name." Like a child. A child is silly, but we do not offend him. He just doesn't have strong intelligence. And once the intellect, the intelligence is strong, all the silly things will disappear. Another tip how not to make too many silly actions: you have to dedicate your life to someone. So Srila Prabhupada, for example, do things for him, and you will understand immediately that for this person you will not do silly things. And so if it's for someone real, you will not do stupid things for a real person. Thank you for this nice question. Anastasia is writing. I'm reading Bhagavad Gita with you, and I have a question. Doesn't mean that Krishna just uses our bodies, that new souls could come to this world, and we would help them to develop love towards God. No, Krishna never exploits us. He lives all the time freedom. We are all, at any circumstances, have freedom. And exploitation means that we don't have any freedom. Krishna would not exploit our bodies. And by developing a love towards Godhead, we can indeed help other souls. That's true. If we spread this God consciousness to people, they will feel this God's love, divine love, and then their consciousness will also emanate and spread it further. Everything depends on your consciousness. So this formula is valid and it's very good. But just have in mind that Krishna does not exploit us. It happens naturally. Because, okay, in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the soul itself never can give birth to someone else. Yes, we cannot produce, so to say, someone, but there are certain mechanisms in this world that can produce the bodies for the souls accordingly to the desires of the souls. Because there is a body. When there is a body, then that means there was certain desire to have such a body. So material energy does create bodies, but it's not like Krishna is interested in that. Krishna doesn't care for the material world. He doesn't even want it. But because the soul has material desires, material energy creates it, and Krishna regretfully does it. Therefore, we can be active, proactive. We can progress, and by progressing ourselves, we can help others to salvation, to bring them to salvation as well. Now we are reading Bhagavad Gita, and there are so many entities surrounding you in your room. There are microbes, there are different entities, and everybody receive the goodness from these vibrations. And that means that sooner or later these creatures will receive the virtue, and the spiritual life has started. That's why it's very important to read out loud the prayers even. Olga is writing, I have no expectations. I just want for things to happen as they should. The last marathon was my first, and it was very difficult. I had different changes and transformations in life, and I still have no certainty to what it will bring, what it will harm. Yeah, all changes, they're good. The fact that you are detached and you just surrender and you say, let it be how it should be, that's fine. And that you entrust yourself to Krishna. And I'm happy that you had a previous marathon and that it brought difficulties, because if you have a difficult state inside, Just you have to bear in mind that that is because certain problems and certain karmic sinful activities are being burned. Of course we cannot see it, but any difficult state, it's the when our karma difficult one is burning. So when you write here that it was difficult, I'm happy for that, because it means the there were certain changes took place, and after some time you will see the results of it, that the transformation of this transformation of life. You will see that after some time something will happen. For example, either you will understand philosophy, or your affairs will be fine. And if it's heavy for you and you offer it to the Lord, this is also good. You offer it to him, you says it's heavy for you, and this is Krishna consciousness. Svetlana is writing, after second marathon, I felt how inside of me I realized I had very important basics, spiritual pivot. The faith and knowledge is very good combination. I'm very glad for you. Okay, I feel more confidence in me. So what is confidence? It means your faith is stronger, right? And also I feel more gratitude. I have more gratitude towards Guru and Srila Prabhupada. That's very good meditation. If you have such a faith in Srila Prabhupada and spiritual master, it means everything that happened to you was by their mercy. Their prayers protected you, and you had realizations, and that all is thanks to them, only to them. So this gratitude is very natural, and it's very good that you express it. The third marathon is a gift, new depths, and I'm happy to have experienced leaders, because I'm diving in, and I feel such a great happiness inside, and I see how my priorities become right, good, and from this realization the peace comes in the mind. Okay, what Svetlana is describing, it's a very perfect realization. This is very good direction, vector. This peace in mind is what exactly we need. If inside there is no peace, outside there will be no peace. There will be maybe turbulence, stress, and so on. So our task is to pacify the mind. Thank you very much for these realizations, very good ones. It's very important what you are feeling, this complete safety, feeling safe whilst diving in. And like this, you have to follow spiritual master, fully aware of the safety that he gives, the feeling of it. You're also writing that you start having right priorities in the spiritual practice, and that's another victory that everyone should have, to learn how to make good priorities. Because if we do not know how to do that priorities, then material energy will do that for us. If we have a weak intelligence, material energy will whisper to our ear that what is good or wrong, but that's not that's dangerous because it's so we are reading Bhagavad Gita in order to reinforce our intelligence. There is no better remedy for that reinforcement than reading Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna says that the one who studies this dialogue is worshipping me with his intelligence. And when you do have knowledge in your intelligence, then you will always put good priorities, and then you will have ability to act accordingly to these priorities. It will be easy for you. Okay, another Svetlana is writing. If I do any mistakes in pronunciation of your surname, I apologize. Thank you for this opportunity to participate in this marathon. Today I had this association that appeared in my consciousness. It's like this marathon. It's like a Govardhan hill, and Krishna is holding it, and we are under it, and we are protected by Krishna. That's very nice realization. There are so many things that can go around, like the real disasters. If you read this Leela, how Indra attacked Vraj, it was really horrible. It looked like the end of the world. But all inhabitants of Vrindavan felt themselves very safely under Govardhan Hill. The same thing when you dive in this holy scripts, you will feel that all the troubles around you in this mundane world, viruses and so on, it will not cause you any fear, because the influence of the spiritual energy is very powerful and potent. So very nice realization. Elena is writing. Thank you very much for this mercy, because this is accelerating the speed that we have on this path of Lord Chaitanya. Why? I have a question. Why the internal lila of Krishna are all the time the same? You know, they are innumerous. They are not all the same. There are so many of them, and we don't even know lots of them. There is not even two lilas that are identical of Krishna. It's just our material consciousness suggests that this is the same lilas, and they're like kind of the same. But if you read the every lila again and again, you will have a realization that each time there are new things, new angles, new colors, new nuance that you didn't see before. For example, in the spiritual world, it is said that Krishna is uplifting every day Govardhan hill. Every day he is dancing on the heads of Kali. But because in the spiritual world there is no past, so every time it feels like a new time. But it's very impossible to understand it with our material consciousness. It's not the same leelas. They are all the time different. It's just, you know, what we have access to, these leelas that we know, they are the most maybe easy for us leelas that we can more or less understand. You know, Krishna spent 125 years on earth. You know, from the level of Brahma, this is nothing in terms of time. And he just had some pastime here that we more or less could understand. There are so many leelas that are not described in the books, so many of them. Vrijabasis are telling the Leelas that are Vrijabasis, by the way, they are local inhabitants, and they sometimes tell us such Leelas that are never described somewhere. And these pastimes are not even compatible with our world, with our reality. You know, with time they will be revealed to us. Also, we were speaking about that the last marathon. Up till now, we have works only of 6 Goswamis. So all the leelas that they described, we have access to. But um, but you know that not all these texts that they wrote are even found, or even what to speak of translated. Uh, so as we progress further on in this golden age, there will be a new text that will be found and decrypted in a way, gradually. Елена Mironova is writing. Can you explain why the mind is so demoniac during eclipse time? Well, you know, the eclipse means that the dark forces, demoniac forces, are having more power because sun and moon are sun and moon are covered by either Rahu or Ketu, and usually Rahu, the demoniac planet, because back in the day he was upset with Surya Dev and Chandra Dev, as there was a because the story because Surya Dev and Chandra Dev they discovered that he was a demon, and being a demon he drank the drink of immortality, and they discovered it, and they wanted to prohibit this to him, but he managed to drink one drop, even though Lord Vishnu then beheaded this demon, and so his head is floating in this form of, of this planet Rahu, and then Ket also. So everyone who will look at the eclipse, at the sun or the moon, this impact will be reinforced. So in these days, we have no recommendations. You know, even temples are closed during during that days of eclipses, but to pray it's always favorable. And also those people who still have material habits and material desires, this at this time it will be more felt. You will feel them strongly, these desires and bad habits. Okay, Irina is writing. Could you help me? Tell me, please, if I chant holy names, but I don't have initiation, could I have a decorative statue of Krishna? Or it will be an offense? No, it will not be an offense. You can have it like a painting, for example. It should be. It should be like a painting, and your relationship should be that that like with the painting, you're not worshiping it, So then it's fine. It will remind, this painting will remind you. It will remind you the presence of Krishna. That's very good. Marina is writing. Why Jiva could have a desire to do activities that it doesn't. Mm, you know, if the person is not awakened, then who the person is acting, not Jiva, because you're asking why Jiva wants to do something that is not prescribed to her. But when Jiva is awakened, Jiva already starts understanding perfectly what are her duties and her goal, and the main aim is to do. Mm, it starts to do what is prescribed to her, because she starts being full of chit, energy of knowledge. So she will surely know what to do and not to do. But whilst it's still dreaming, then there is influence of ahankara. Yulia is writing. If at work the clients are provoking me to experience the anger, well, what to do? You know, of course, if you see and you even know that this is just a provocation, then you just don't do it. You just have to tolerate it. Don't pay attention too much. Of course, don't be indifferent completely. You have to stay sane. You just have to understand that you are not this body, and you are not the woman, you are not this worker, you are soul, and any material designation is not is not you. What they do, why they distort? Because you self identify with the false ego, and that's why you have this uh, frustration. But if you are Aham Brahmasmi, meaning that I'm a spiritual entity, this is not about me, and then you will feel certain relief. On the other hand, it's a training, very good training. You have good people who help you to train, because this tolerance or patience that is developed like that will help you further. And if you keep reading Bhagavad Gita, you will find the arguments that to calm down, to pacify these people. Very important to have good, clear arguments. You don't have to prove anything, anyone, but you can use arguments. For example, if someone told you something that is frustrating for you, but then you can preach yourself, I'm the soul. I'm the soul, this is not about me. But then you can analyze something. You can analyze what exactly was causing me this distress in these words, because um, because there are things that are pinpointing the painful points like this. You can understand what is hurting you. It's not the person who is hurting you himself, but what he says, it hurts me. And like this you can analyze and make a conclusion. It means that you have something inside, and then you can be even thankful to these co-workers or clients. It's just like an example, I'm bringing. Of course, don't maybe even say thank you to them openly, because they might misinterpret it. But then what can happen is that if you are not being touched by it, they might be even angry because you keep calm and you are not becoming angry. So you have to be really careful. You know, I remember one story. Maybe I've already told you that, but I will repeat it. You know, our teacher, once he went to the lecture of the disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was the spiritual brother of Srila Prabhupada. It was at Radhakunda. And there was such a question there: how to live if with people with whom I cannot stand. I really dislike them. And this spiritual master said, "Oh, that's very good situation. You have to invite these people to your home and let them stay, let them live at your house, and you should serve them. And like this, you will progress. Or even better, you have to build a house for them next to your house, so they will constantly live next to you, and like this you will purify very quickly and you will live to the spiritual world." This is just the story that came to my mind, and this is of course good when we have a certain provocation like this. We'll have a chance to see things and learn. But anyway, whoever is frustrating you, whoever, always you have to understand that you yourself, you always have something to work on. Because if something provokes you or irritates you or displeases you, it means that you have something inside of you to work on. Further, Любовь is writing. Любовь is the name. Thank you very much for the mercy of being here and listening to you. Today, when reading 5th chapter, the tears started pouring, and after I had relief and inner peace. Yes, that's Krishna inside of your heart who is purifying you. Certain realization, you apparently you received certain realization. Galina is writing, "Hello. What if my relatives forbid me to repeat Hare Krishna out loud? Can I do it inside of my head?" Yes, it's very good. Because in your mind, no one can forbid you that, and you have to do that. But even if out loud, you can still do it if your relatives are not there, or if you have a room, if you have a time to be by yourself, you can whisper it. This is called japa. In Sanskrit, it means whisper, japa. It means only you is the one who is hearing if you are whispering. And in your mind, no one can forbid you to chant it. No one can take from you Krishna from your mind, because no one can access it. So mantra is the work with mind. So thank you for this question. And Galina, thank you for the question. I think that everyone should learn how to chant in the mind. It's not less important than pronouncing out loud, because we can quit the body at any moment, and if we don't learn how to chant in the mind, that would be very sad, because when you leave the body, the soul leaves the body, the soul has to continue chanting, but already with the help of a mind. And if the mind is not occupied with the mantra, then certain silly things can come to the mind, and it can form our next birth, our next gross body. Just because the mind was restless and could not be focused, because the mind will try to hold on till the very last breath. He will be frustrated, he will be desperate, he feels that everything he's losing at the moment of death, and he will understand that this is the last, this is it, this is the end, and he will not have it back. So please don't think that this is just imaginary things. I had this experience, this is reality. You will have a very good understanding that you will not be able to to keep it with you, and if you have these attachments and the realization that you are losing it will come, you will really suffer. Imagine you lost a cell phone or a wallet. Will you feel happy? No. Why? Because you will not be able to bring it back to you, to take it back. So but if you lose something and you don't feel unhappiness, that means you didn't have attachment, and you are keep calm and peaceful, and your mind is peaceful. You know, in India once we had to cross over Ganges river, and one girl, she made a photo of the dolphins. We were on this long boat, and and she was making pictures, and all of a sudden her phone fell in Ganga River, and it disappeared. The phone, you just she lost it, and then she said, "Oops," and then she said, "Oh, I dropped my phone. Oh, it's okay. I have another phone," and she takes out another phone. And then she says, it's not the first time I lose my phone here. Every time I come here, every time I come here, I lose the phone, and so I decided to to carry two phones with me. So I noticed that she was not perturbated too much, you know, not at all. So this is the mind. So we have to learn how to chant mantra in our mind. We should learn how to pronounce it in the mind, because this is the real Krishna consciousness, to learn how to chant in the mind, not only on the beads, because the moment of leaving the body, the mind has to be thinking of Krishna. If we start thinking about the losses that we had, material wealth or something, we will have to take birth again, and not even sure that we will take birth as a human, in a human form of life. You know, if we had very animalistic desires or attachments, like sleep, eat, sex life, or defense, it's not sure that we take a human form of life. So it's very important to learn how to chant in your mind, because yes, and I see that you have a good position now. You have a good chance to learn how to chant in your mind. Marina is writing. How to see in yourself hypocrisy, or is it just a certain stage of the spiritual development? Of course, once you detect in yourself a pretender, the real spiritual life begins. Of course, you have to act upon it, yes, because if you just detected it and then sit and do nothing with the fact that you have this pretender inside, then this is not good. But the first step is to detect that we are pretenders, and then we have to act upon it. And that is how the spiritual practice begins. You know, you can dig out so many different things inside of you. Um, we will find all sorts of the hypocrisy or pretension or jealousy or madness, all of that, or critics, things like this. We will discover so many things, but you have to act upon it. You don't have to be in a position of enjoying all of that bad things and degrading. So I see that you are right in that maybe in the process you don't understand that you were pretender, but then you realize and whilst you were acting, it was not very truthful. Well, I think that you should still act, even though it's not perfect yet, but slowly and gradually you will detect it, and then you have to raise the quality because. You don't have to pretend that you understand something, for example. Okay, so what I have to do? I have to try to understand better. Or why you have to pretend that you like to raise up in the morning? You're just pretending. Yes, maybe I'm pretending, but at least I wake up early. Yes, I pretend that I like it, but I know that it's necessary and I have to do it. But like that, it's okay. It's a valuable. It's intelligence because you should withstand all these provocations of the mind, even if you detected that there is some kind of hypocrisy or you were pretending. Why is it easier to understand when we listen than when we are reading? Attention is spreading when we are reading for a long time, especially. But this bliss is rising in both cases, listening and reading. Well, of course, the mind is restless, and it's very difficult to concentrate when you're reading by yourself. Also, the sound itself when someone is reading is helping, because when you are reading out loud you have to put an effort, and when you don't have when you are reading out loud, you already put an effort, you put a fire, and so you miss some energy in order to at the same time understand it, and then it's easier to just listen carefully. And you know, for everybody, it's individual. For someone, it's easier to understand better when he reads than when he listens, for example. Anastasia is writing. The fourth chapter, the verse 37. In the purport is written, then when a person obtains perfect knowledge, he will get rid of the consequences of both bad or good karma. How should I understand the nullifying the good fruits? You know, it means that you will not have access to the fruits of the good activities. It means you will not go to paradise. Because for the good things that we do here, we go to the paradise planets. because we have to spend these good fruits. It's like you earned money and then you can spend the money. You know, you will, if you earn money anyway, you will have to do something with the money. Similarly, with the pious acts, they are all noted in this special notebook for the candidates who would go to the paradise planets. And paradise planets means that you will have to come back here. You'll have to take birth on middle planets. And again, to face things that you don't want to do here. Because it's not like you only have pious acts. You parallel you will have also impious acts, and impious acts means that you know. And so when Krishna says that the fire of knowledge will burn both pious fruits of pious and impious activities, it means that you will go to the spiritual world. So the pious activity will be still marked, but it will not go to the bank account of the paradise. It's like mm, you will accumulate auspicious like pious activities, but it will not impact. For example, let's take example of a person who has made a good deed, and already in this life he will have to take the fruits of it did, and he can spend these fruits even already in this life. For example, he planted a tree. The tree is with fruits, and then he collected the fruits, and so he received the good fruit. But if there is a transcendental knowledge that we're trying to acquire, this perfect knowledge, then when he plants the tree, he gets the fruit. He still keeps these fruits, right? Um, so then he collects these fruits, and if he has spiritual knowledge, um, he keeps collecting the fruits. In the material way, if he didn't have spiritual knowledge, he would just collect the fruit and they would be finished sooner or later. But in spiritual sense, we will not lose anything. These fruits will help us to come back to the spiritual world. For example, the person ate a good, healthy food and he received some force, and then um, and then he went and he spent this force by doing something. The food gave strength, energy, and he did certain activities, and he spent it after. But transcendental knowledge, or the acts dedicated to the Lord, it acts differently. You ate spiritual food, you went to work, and physically you might have been exhausted, but because it was a spiritual food, it remains in your body, because it was a ritual, it was your service to the Lord. You are not losing anything in the end. You remain spiritually strong, even though physically you might need to eat again. Whilst in the first case, without spiritual knowledge, it just was totally low, like the fruit was gone. After you ate, then you were hungry again. Yelena is asking, could you please explain why the number is 16 rounds that we need to chant? Why 16? Well, first of all, it brings us certain discipline. It makes us responsible, because when we receive initiation, we have to give a vow. It will be our vow. And thanks to keeping this vow, we obtain certain strength. We have certain strength because this is a spiritual vow, not material one. That's why we have to chant 16, because we gave such a vow to the spiritual master, and it's our service to him. We promised to serve him in that way, and he accepts this service. You make such a vow, and he accepts it as a service. And so your guru will take it, and this is a mercy for you, because he accepted. You know, sometimes there will be cases when a spiritual master might not even accept your service, and then it's very sad. And why the number is 16? It's actually the very minimum. And Prabhupada was the person who made it. Because first, initially, Prabhupada said 64, but disciples they couldn't do it. They said, Prabhupada, it's unreal. We have to dedicate the half of the day to that, and we have so many duties. How to do that? It's not real. Srila Prabhupada understood that people from the West are not capable, and it's not possible for them. You know, some disciples of Lord Chaitanya who were not so much engaged in the service, practical service, I mean, they would chant 3 lakh 64 multiply 3, because 64 rounds is 1 lakh. So you can multiply 3 multiply 64. 192. How many? So that's every day. That's for those who were not engaged in a practical active service. For them it was easy, because they would experience bliss by chanting. But those who were engaged into practical service, you know, there are devotees who have a lot of practical service, who have a lot of responsibilities. They chanted just 64. They would raise up at 2 in the morning, and then by 9, 10 they would already be finished. But you know, because we do not have this piety, we don't experience the bliss when chanting. We feel it's like a hard thing to do. And Srila Prabhupada noticed that with the Western disciples, that it's very hard for them to do. So he diminished to the 32 rounds. But then some disciples sincerely addressed Srila Prabhupada and said, you know, Srila Prabhupada, we still cannot. It's still a lot, and we have a lot of responsibilities. We are family people. We don't live in the temple. It's very difficult for us to do. It's not possible. And then Srila Prabhupada stood up, and he was about to leave, and then already almost leaving, he said, okay, 16 rounds, but not less. And all the rest of the time you have to preach. Then you will make a progress. Not that we do 16 rounds and you don't do anything else. No. The rest of the time should be dedicated to preaching. Otherwise, you will not be able to progress in the cities. You will be degrading. It's not that easy to get out of the material trap. So 16 rounds, it's a very minimum. It's for our own selves. It's not that they want us that's they want us to feel losers. No, um, this minimum will help us to keep on this, like in the Krishna conscious. This is really needed. We need to accept it as a service, and that the spiritual master will accept as a service. And these 16 rounds can help us not degrade. And Srila Prabhupada gave us this key, which we called 16 by 4. 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles. We do not eat meat, fish, or eggs. This is dead food. We will not be able to progress if we eat it. Not to take an intoxication, alcohol, caffeine, or any drugs, smoke, and so on. Also, garlic, onion. This is also intoxication. It's actually a medicine, and it's better to apply it externally, garlic and onion. Also, not to do any, not to participate in any hazard games, mm, or some kind of unlawful business, black business. And also not to enter illicit sexual relationship only in the marriage, and even in marriage there should be certain regulation. So this is 16.4, which means that this is guarantee to this minimum is guaranteeing us, getting a warranty for us to get out. And so once disciple asked, because Shilpada said even that is not enough to get out of the material world, and then disciple questioned, but how do we do if even if we do 16.4 we will not have enough piety? How do we get out? He said, just do it anyway, and in the end of your life I will give you lacking piety and have a knowledge of a back door, and I will lead you through it. Tatiana is writing, why, when chanting japa, first you have a joy and light feeling in the heart, but when you exceed the amount of rounds, you have heaviness and your desire to chant disappears, and I have to force myself to continue, and sometimes, sorry, and thanks to marathon, I was able to increase my understanding and in this world, my understanding of my position in this world. This is a very good dynamics. When at first you have a light feeling, and it means that you don't have to do any work in your heart or in your mind. It's like stretching up. It's easy to begin. Yeah. And then and then what happens is you start to purify, and all the dirt goes out. There are 3 stages of chanting holy names. First one is the offensive one. It's important to keep doing it, even offensive stage. Krishna is not taking offense because he understands, and he is happy that we are still doing it. And so the happiness that you experience is actually the happiness of Krishna that he experiences. And after some time, he starts to see your sincerity, and the second stage begins. Purification stage means that you have a lot of things will come out. All the dirt, all the critics, all the dirt will have to come out. Therefore, the mind says that to you that it's very heavy. I cannot. It's very difficult. This is all my treasures. Please, keep it with me. So the mind inspires you to like to stop chanting. He wants you to do it slower, not to do so intensively. But you have to keep chanting. You have to keep doing that. You have to listen to the sound. It's a surgery that's going on. The dirt is coming out. You have to. You cannot. You shouldn't stop it. So it's normal what you're describing. So all the time make an effort, because when you're making an effort, the good fruits will come, because the good fruits will help you to continue. Your efforts is austerity. Austerity gives power, and so it will empower you. You will become stronger and stronger. Like when you have to lift weight, gradually you have to lift more and more. I'm reading this realization of Tatiana that as she was increasing the depth of reading, she started to have realization of her place in this world. And that's good. Why? Because it means humility. And you find your own real place and you progress from there then. Lilia is writing, hello. Hatha yoga can help. Okay, it's a question. Does Hatha yoga help us to act Krishna, to act in Krishna consciousness? Yes, Hatha yoga can help because it gives you physical and moral health. And if you do Hatha yoga with the goal to serve Krishna, that's very good because you can do a lot of service. Everybody who doesn't do Hatha yoga, after 50 years old, they start feeling how the body is deteriorating. And in this state, it's quite difficult to remember Krishna because the body will take your attention. You have to, you will have to all the time deal with the problems of the body. So gradually the body will deteriorate, and you will already you will not be able to keep focus on Krishna. But if you do Hatha yoga, you will have a good chance that you will not have diseases or illness, and your mind will be peaceful and your senses will not be as wild, and that is helpful in Krishna consciousness. The only thing I recommend is not to do Hatha yoga as the main practice in your life. The main practice should be to chant holy name. The main practice is to read holy scripts and to associate with holy people and to serve them and to serve your spiritual master. And Hatha yoga just can help you to sustain your moral state, physical state, and Krishna will be happy because it was Krishna who gave Hatha yoga in the end of the day, and he's the founder of Hatha yoga. Patanjali Muni is the manifestation of Sankarsana, of Ananta Shesha. He came and he adopted, he made the system of Patanjali, and this is already a light version. It's a light version because the Patanjali Muni came about 2,500 years ago. He also created the grammar of Sanskrit, and then there will be another Muni, Charaka Samhita Muni, and he would give Ayurveda. He gave Ayurveda, and it's given not just without any purpose. It is given with the purpose to sustain ourselves. Yelena is writing, how to pacify myself if I have, if I'm ruminating regretfully and lamenting on my previous mistakes which impacted all my life. you have to, okay, for example, you can take the instructions of Jesus Christ. You should not think that you're stuck. You just have to do repentance and not to make sinful activities again. And if you chant holy names, if you progress and you have a clean way of life, you should not think about your previous mistakes. Just do this repentance and then, forget about it. Don't do sinful activities again. Surrender to Krishna. Don't repeat the sinful activity. And there is no point in ruminating on it all the time, because then you will feel badly, depressed, and my spiritual master said, if you if you fell on a spiritual path and you start thinking of yourself as a pig, it's not helpful. You have to stand up, continue going, and stop thinking that you're a pig, otherwise you'll become a pig. The last question. It's a 25th question. What does it mean, spiritual emotion, whilst reading and practicing? And when even whilst reading and having a physical, practical service. Well, spiritual emotion is not that easy to describe with words. Spiritual matters or things cannot be described with the material intellect. How to explain what is spiritual emotion? You cannot give a definition. It's something that cannot be described. You can listen audio, or you can read Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, second chapter. You can either listen to it in audio or read it. Previously, I asked to send to the participants of this marathon this Madhya Lila second chapter. It is called Spiritual Emotions, which Lord Chaitanya is experiencing, and Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And if you read this chapter, you will understand that it's very difficult to describe. Even what you will be reading or hearing, this description, little one, it's so tiny. It's just so tiny in comparison to what is spiritual emotion. When you feel it, you don't feel that you are the body. You feel that you are soul, and yet you do not want to be in this prison of the material world, and you are dreaming for the liberation. And when you come back to your senses, external one, consciousness, you understand that this was a dream, and now I'm back in the prison. And then he realizes that he's still in prison, in this cell, and this desperation comes. This emotion of desperation is a spiritual emotion. It is actually mixture, like a honey with poison, or like a hot wine. Hot wine is sweet, but you cannot drink it because it burns you. We're not speaking now about alcohol wine, just like a juice of grapes, for example. If you make a juice, if you heat the juice of grapes, it becomes much sweeter than the cold grape juice, but it's hard to drink because it's hot. And it's very strange feeling because don't want to reject it because it's sweet, but it is painful as well because your pride will be burning, because it's very painful to see your pride, and and you will not be able to even quit this medicine because this medicine is so sweet. This divine love is so sweet. There is no such a thing in material world. So these two things together, honey and poison, I do not know. It's a very interesting combination. This is the honey, which is made out of the chutney. You know such a dish. Prabhupada tells us that it's such a spicy that you can't eat it. You can't stand it. You can't eat it because it's hot, spicy, but you cannot reject it because it's sweet. So spicy and sweet combined, it gives this combination. In the post-Soviet Union space, usually we make plums, chutney from plums, and and this spiritual emotion is like that. You feel this ecstasy, but then you feel this bitter taste of still being in this body full of this, bones and everything. So this, you start to understand that this material world is preventing you from experiencing this bliss. This chapter is only about like 40 minutes in audio format, and you can find it in the internet. Madhya Lila, second chapter. You can send even your contact details to our team, and the devotees who are responsible for this session of interactive questions and answers, they will send you this audio, and I recommend you to listen to it. It's very unusual. Thank you very much, everyone, for this time shared together. The time flies. I wish everybody to have a great mood and to see you soon.